Marlon Murr, and it is my pleasure to be here with you on this beautiful Monday afternoon. I will be hosting 8 of these live sessions for the Conversation Learning Foundation, and we'll have the founder, Missy Jena, also join me live. As the founder of Conversation, Jena is operating on a global level to champion innovation, compassion, and inspired connections in work and learning spaces. Born in Fiji and raised in Canada, she graduated with distinction from the University of Victoria's Faculty of Human and Social Development. In education, Jena designs and implements solutions that engage, inspire, and deepen learning experiences. Jena has received numerous awards as a public speaker, inspiring change in educational and leadership practices. Now, each of these sessions will have its own theme and will be broadcasted live on Facebook and YouTube at noon on Mondays, as well as a morning session with a Saturday coming up. We'll be answering questions live from the audience and discussing key themes for each session. Now, if you haven't already done so, go to the Conversation Learning Foundation's Facebook page and check out our session dates, and be sure to bookmark them in your calendar. You can actually set a reminder right on Facebook or YouTube. Like, subscribe, and follow. Today's session is all about connecting with your kids. Missy Jena will be joining me as we discuss communication tips for creating calm and connection with your children during uncertain times of COVID. Before we begin today's section, I wanted to say thank you to the Canadian Red Cross, as well as the Government of Canada, for your generous funding. None of this would be possible without you. Now, please join me in welcoming the founder of Conversation Learning Foundation, Missy Jena.
Hi, Marlon. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction.
Hey, Missy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Really happy to be here.
Me too. I'm so happy that we're doing this. This is a fantastic opportunity.
Yes, fantastic. So I understand you have some questions for me, Marlon.
Yes, so we've received some feedback and questions from the audience in regards to how everyone is dealing and coping with their children at home and education. And obviously during COVID, education has taken a 180. How kids are learning, how they've had to adapt their learning styles, everything. So we've gotten a lot of questions, and I hope you're prepared. Awesome. But before we even begin, I kind of just wanted to get a definition from you. What is family to you?
Family can mean many different things to a lot of different people. And I'm glad you started with this question, because we should preface that whoever is responsible for the child, whether it's the biological mom and dad or adopted parents or a care home, wherever the child calls home, that is their home setting, and the family are the people that take care of that child. And for me, family, what does family mean to me? Well, Marlon, I have a mom, dad, and brother, and my family, I think of like comedians. They're all comedians in their own way. We like to laugh. We like to joke. And of course, we're not immune from conflict. We'll have conflict. We'll find ways to solve our conflicts. And the spirit of the family is to find a way to navigate whatever challenges there may be. And the current circumstances are such that COVID has really thrown a lot of curveballs into families. What does family mean to you, Marlon?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, well, I was actually going to just continue on what you're saying. What I've found really difficult is with families with seniors in care homes right now, not being able to visit, not being able to go over there for your weekend visits kind of thing. That's been tough for a lot of families. So transitioning, I want to talk to you about that. How can families really communicate with each other from a distance as well?
That's a good point, Marlon, because there's the family that you live with, and then the family that is extended in other places, and you may not be able to visit them. And so there's the absence of like the physical connection, the hugs, the real-time smiles, and like being able to see the light in your family's eyes, your family members' eyes. All of that is challenged through online communications, but it's still a means for people to connect if they have the Wi-Fi capacity and technology.
Technology.
Mhm.
And then it's a matter of teaching the technology to the older generations to make sure
Yes.
you connect with your grandchildren and then great-grandchildren, everything like that.
Yeah.
Very important for the children as well, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. Like that just reminds me of my grandpa on dad's side was like my first best friend. And though he lived in Fiji, we had a tradition of back then recording cassette tapes, like letters to him through cassette tapes, and we would send them off, and then he would reply in his own cassette tape, and that would go back and forth. And we did that for years. And that connection to grandparents is so important, and parents should not overlook how important that is both ways.
Wow, that's so interesting. So cassette tapes back and forth, your own personal recordings. That's a great way of doing it.
I guess we were podcasting before there were podcasts.
That's great. So jumping into the quick question here from one of the audience members here, how can I gauge how well my child is learning the material their teacher sends home? Obviously, teachers are sending home probably a little bit more than usual for homework right now because there's more things to learn and less time. So how can I gauge that?
Okay, so how can I gauge how well my child is learning the material their teacher sends home? This is a tricky question, and from classroom to classroom, the materials that are being sent home will be different. So from the parent's point of view, I suppose I would be looking for some key things. Is my son or daughter interacting with the materials? Does my son or daughter understand what's being asked of them? At this time, tests and quizzes, things like that may not be the best indicator of how well they're learning their material, but can your child tell you or teach you about what they're learning as a way to measure how much their child is able to take in?
So have your child kind of reiterate and teach you the core concepts of whatever they're trying to learn.
Mm-hmm. And also to let you know if they're stuck anywhere. And I would say at this time, the learning piece is the piece that is probably the most challenging for all involved, from principals, teachers, children, parents. Like this learning equation online, in class, we want to make sure that the kids are okay. I think a lot of us just, first of all, make sure your child's okay. Yeah. Learning is going to come. Kids are so resilient.
The one thing I remember growing up, I would always get homework sent home, and there'd be complex homework, sometimes algebra, math, and no offense to my parents or anything, but they just didn't understand, and they couldn't really teach me as well as a teacher could teach me. So what are some ways to overcome that when I guess as a parent, you're not fully confident in your abilities to teach your child?
That is such a great question, and one we should lead with empathy for parents, because if you don't understand the material, it's going to be really hard to help your child learn it. So I would say just be straight with your kid. Like, I don't really understand this. Where can we look? What can we do? And then that way you're exploring it together. Right. Or build up a support network. If there's some other kids in your student's class that the parents, you can contact them and be like, hey, I'm struggling with like question 6. What do you think? And try and figure it out with them. And like whatever you do, just bring a little dash of humor to it. Like, don't feel terrible that you don't know it.
I think my mom's done that. I have a younger sister, and I think my mom's done that with her before, with homework, texting her girlfriend and be like, hey, like, what's the answer to this question? I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's a good way of doing it. That's smart.
Yeah, it's totally okay. And when a parent leads with that, then they give that other parent permission to say, oh my gosh, and I'm really struggling with the math that's coming home, So
then it's a conversation to have with the teacher.
Totally. You got it, Marlon.
There we go. Any tips on dealing with stress in a noisy environment? I guess this person has 3 of them working from home with 2 kids at home during the day as well. So 5 people in a household. What are your tips for dealing with noise?
Well, noisy environments, distraction, lots of different people working at home, 2 kids home during the day. Structure, routine, set spaces. I think signs, like construction paper signs that I'm online right now, like please do not disturb, or even just recognizing that there'll be times where they'll need to be available to outside people. And then there's times where all of the family members are working on their individual projects, whatever they may be. So headphones, if they have them, take turns, try and coordinate your working times. And depending on how old the children are, I would have like little sprints, like, okay, for the next 10 minutes, it's going to be quiet working time. Set a timer. And when that timer goes off, freedom. Let them have a little scream. Let them jump around. Let them get their energy out. So be realistic, manage your expectations around like extended quiet times.
And can I add to this? I think getting outside in the environment, getting some fresh air really does wonders, especially when you're trying to focus and getting out of your environment, then getting back into it.
Yeah.
Totally fresh.
Excellent suggestion, Marlon. So taking breaks, intentional breaks, so you can return back to your working environment. That's beautiful.
You know what the best thing for that? Animals. Because you always have to take a dog out. Take them out constantly. When I'm working from home, I have 2 dogs. So I constantly have to get up, make sure I'm going outside with them. And so it kind of forces me to do that. So I'm thankful for that.
Well, you know, Marlon, I don't have pets, but I'm thinking about the families that don't have pets. And if their children are in their younger years, maybe you can adopt an imaginary pet and start taking your imaginary pet out for walks.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way of doing it. So we have another viewer. They're 13 years old and they want to learn how they can be a better student. Again, they're too distracted and they can't focus at home, which is unfortunate, but for a child that's looking to become a better student, what tips do you have for them?
Oh, I love this question. We have a 13-year-old who wrote in. They want to be a better student at home. They want to learn, and they've addressed what is happening for so many kids right now. They're distracted. They can't focus. Learning is a challenge. So kudos to this 13-year-old. I would recommend that structure and routine to support them. You know, again, timed segments for working on schoolwork, and give yourself permission to know you will get distracted, you will lose your focus. Have some ideas of what you can do if you are distracted. Maybe get up, move, walk around for a while, come back to your work, set yourself up with a checklist. Like, I just need to accomplish these 3 things and then check them off, because simply ticking something off gives you that feeling of accomplishment, which is then the fuel that helps you achieve and accomplish more.
Yeah, I think everyone should have a task list for the day.
Yeah.
And literally with a physical pen and paper. It's not on your phone, physical pen and paper. It makes so much. It's life-changing almost. It's weird.
Yeah, it really makes a difference for me as well. And to this 13-year-old and all the other 13-year-olds out there who have exactly this challenge, I would invite you to share with your classmates. Like, if your teacher is doing some social emotional learning time in your classes, like, raise this as a concern. And this, again, gives the other students permission to share, yeah, I get really distracted too. I can't focus. And that turns into a collective brainstorming experience.
Collective brainstorming experience.
Yeah, so then ideas, they generate the ideas on how they can solve this problem.
And most times, in my experience, children, when they think of ideas amongst each other, they usually come up with the best ideas.
Like popcorn. Pop, 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 pop.
Yeah, right? Now, another question we have here is, how do I speak to my child about all the negative in the world? I don't want them to be upset. I guess every time I turn on the news, I mean, there's always, it leads to the negative first. So how can we have a better conversation with our kids when there's so much negativity going on in the world?
Yeah, I wish I knew how old the child was, because there's developmentally appropriate conversations you can have based on where your child is at, how old they are. So I will lead with, imagine this is a 5-year-old, okay? And 5-year-olds are usually hopeful and optimistic, and the world is a wonderful place. And there's no denying that right now there is a lot of negative stuff that's out there in the news, and things that are coming home, and maybe things that our parents are discussing that may have an impact on the child. So this parent is wanting to learn how to address the negative stuff in the world without upsetting the child. So again, be straight, be authentic. Like, yeah, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and some of it can be upsetting. And we can talk about some of the good stuff that's going on in the world too. Like, you can bring that balanced perspective. Like, yeah, you got to address COVID for your kids in an age appropriate way. And then you can also talk about what are some of the positives that have resulted from this? What are some of the things that we've learned? What are some of the things that we've been able to do? And check in with your child. Like, you may talk about something, and yourself, you may think, oh, I think this might upset them. After you've chatted with them and you check in, what does this mean to you? You will get that A, they're not bothered at all, or B, they have some concerns, C, they're confused. Whatever their response is, they're going to be the best ones to tell you how they're feeling.
Should parents avoid having that difficult conversation, or should they be encouraged to have that conversation?
So there's two ways. One is something could come up that propels or makes a parent feel that they need to address a situation that is negative, or a child may ask a question about something that the parent's like, oh, I didn't even know that you knew that. So depending on the scenario, if the child is curious, do support them in their curiosity in a way that would work best for your own child, because you know your kid's best. Two, I don't know, parent, family to family, it's going to range how much you talk about what the global impact of COVID is, and like death rates and, all those scarier statistics that have resulted as because of the pandemic. Really, parents, use your instinct and check in, like make sure it's a back and forth with your child. You're not just delivering information, that they're able to also tell you how that information is landing for them.
That's great advice. Wow. And so there's a topic of COVID, obviously pandemics and all that kind of stuff we're going through right now. Flu shots, flu season coming up. There's a lot of things coming from the government, Health Canada, from the school systems about getting shots and everything like that. This next question kind of leads into that. And my 12-year-old wants to go to school, but I feel it is unsafe still. This is causing us to fight a lot. So there's no question here, but I guess just addressing this issue, the child wants to go to school, the parent doesn't feel like it's safe for them. What do they do in this circumstance? 12 years old is a little bit older than elementary school. So,
So I would say, first of all, Marlon, this question is a tough question, and I'm sure both the child and the parent, they struggle with what is the best thing to do here. So if we just look at the intention or the motivations, we can sort of hypothesize, why does the 12-year-old want to go to school? Talk to your 12-year-old about, what is it that they want? Is it the connection to friends? Do they want to be back in the classroom setting? Like, just capture the world of what is going on for your 12-year-old so they don't have to resist you. They feel understood. If parents goes, oh, I get it, you miss your friends, or you physically want to be back in the school setting, your child will be able to share that with you. And as far as the parent and safety, like, that is ultimately the parents, household to household. Parents make that decision, and the parents have to do what is best for the child, what is safe. And I feel often there's a disconnect between children and parents when it comes to these things. Children may not understand like how tricky it is to be a parent and to do the right thing for your children. And
the right thing.
The right thing. So for well, we have a series called Wishes and Wisdoms, and we'll talk more about that later. But for there to be a conversation and being able for both parties to understand that we may not see eye to eye right now, but here's my reasons why, and I've now heard your reasons why, and we're going to work through this together. And then that should hopefully dissolve the challenge.
So it's coming up with a kind of a common balance and making sure that you're aware of why they're wanting to do what they want to do, and understanding really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, that motivations and intentions are transparent from both sides. Like, hey, I just want to keep you safe, kid. I love you. And for the kid to go, oh yeah, I see you have to consider so many factors to determine.
It's I could find it difficult to have that kind of conversation with someone, especially your own child and everything like that. Having these tough conversations, it's a necessary thing. How can you go about it in a way that doesn't upset the child?
Yeah. Okay. So there's immediately the visual that comes to mind is that they've already entered into like kind of that inflammatory state of heated discussion, and then they're trying to find their way out of it. And I would say the best time to have that conversation is before you get to that heated state, or take time for both of you or both parties to decompress, catch their breath, and then come back and revisit the subject. But so often I think this is where the wheels come off the car, so to speak, where it's just become a heated debate, and now you're just like trying to assert your perspective versus truly engaging and connecting with each other to find a solution.
I think you're right. Tackling that problem before it even gets there, you're spot on there. And this kind of leads into the same kind of situation. My child is 7 and is not enjoying being in school. He has extreme anxiety even before COVID. I've considered homeschooling, but I want him to continue to be social and not be socially awkward later. That's a big one. Kind of dealing with the same situation we just talked about. So what are your tips for them?
Some tips here, and I'll preface this with, considerations, individual considerations. Parents have the choice to choose what's best for their child, and this parent is thinking about the pros and cons, wanting to keep their child safe and as well reduce anxiety, but also not wanting to limit their social connection or social capacity later in life. So the child is 7 and not enjoying being in school. Just drawing from my own experience, there were weeks or months of school that I loved, and then days or weeks or months of school that I didn't love. And some of these phases can pass. It's hard to say. It's hard to give like a global response, like a one-size-fits-all response to that. But I would say with the 7-year-old, if there's concerns around anxiety that was in place even before COVID, like leaning into support from doctor or pediatrician, what does that pediatrician recommend? They may have had other children in the same situation. So leaning into expertise, and also just acknowledging as the parent that you want the best for your kid. And I think that it's not easy. Parenting is not easy. Knowing what to do. There's no like, can I fast forward 20 years later and see what the result will be?
What did I do?
Yeah. So in light of just being there and supporting your child as best you can, and providing, like, if you do decide to do homeschooling, then providing them with opportunities for them to be social and connect with other kids, that would be really great. If you decide to go to school, then having some supports to provide the child with care around the anxiety and how the child can manage their anxiety. I'm not a doctor, so I'll just say that. I'm not a doctor.
You're an educator.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So do you have any tools for parents at home to help them basically teach their kids and help their kids have a better education?
Well, we have a back-to-school care kit for educators. So in August, we launched a program, a 12-week program to support educators to bring in calm and connection to the classroom through social social emotional learning. And in that, we discovered, Marlon, your question, that there are so many parents who are looking for tools to support their kids while they were at home. And while, oh, look, that's the next question. So in November, we will have a family care kit available for parents to explore calm, connection, and understanding at home. Now, I will say this care kit isn't about academically supporting the child. It's about helping the child find connection, understanding, problem solving together, being creative, and just embracing your humanity. So the family care kit will be available in November through our website, and we invite parents, caregivers, whatever the family situation is for the child, to come visit us. Not yet. Well, you can. It'll be available in November. We are actively working on it.
Amazing. So what's going to be included in this kit? Are they going to get like a physical kit to take home? Is it going to be an online kit? How explain the kit a little bit.
It's an online kit. So in the kit will be a range of activities that they can do with their children, and themes to explore. So around the conversation, 5 themes, ideas, inspiration, tips around communication, tips around handling emotions, how to make learning transparent. So like really, when I say just be straight, I don't get this.
Yeah.
Making learning become transparent so that children don't have to struggle with like, what is learning? How am I supposed to learn this? Just to have that in the kit, and also around problem solving, as well as a range of activities. So it's an online PDF resource, which will be supported by these weekly live sessions. So as parents explore their care kits, they can ask us questions. We'll support them through the process. And the end goal is to bring calm, connection, and joy into the home.
Calm, connection, and joy. Where does the connection come from? The connection?
Like the human connection? Like, yeah, good question. So authentically connecting with each other, because these are really challenging times. 2020 has been one roller coaster.
I haven't seen any ups yet. I think we're still down.
We are. And it'll range from family to family. Their response, we've seen from the parents that have participated in our focus groups, as well as submitted responses through our survey, that parents are having to be really creative right now. And some of them are finding their way coasting along where others are struggling. So it's a wide range. No 2 families are on the same page. And I'll say no 2 kids are on the same page. No 2 principals are exactly on the same page. We're all kind of in this hot mess together, trying to navigate our way out of it, hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. I know. Mm-hmm. I know. Coming up to the holiday season, a lot of families aren't going to be able to spend as much time with each other as they normally would. Mm-hmm. We have FaceTime and Skype, Zoom, all those sort of things we can do with our family. But what are you thinking of doing this year for the holiday season in order to connect with your family that you won't be able to see?
Full transparency, Marlon, I haven't even thought about it yet. That is so down the road.
I guess we've got to deal with Halloween coming up in the next 1 week coming up anyway. So I think you're doing it. But the holidays are fast approaching. We're a couple months away.
And as we saw at the start, so back in March, how very quickly people started like a family social hour through Zoom. They'd have their weekly time, they'd check in with each other. I've heard of like twins who've been separated for 6 months that they rely on seeing each other online once a week. The scenarios will be different. Maybe we'll come back and revisit this question later, like how to maintain the connection with the extended families, because I don't know. Letters, handwritten letters, funny videos, something. I think a lot.
I love your cassette tape idea.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Anyone receiving anything physical in the mail, it's exciting. It's nice because nowadays everything comes through email. It's rare that you get something important in the mail. So when you get a package like that from a loved one, it's all touchy-feely.
Totally. So you can do, maybe we can just invent right now, instead of mailed cards, you can mail an audio, or email an audio. Find fun, creative ways to connect.
Mm-hmm. Jena, I really appreciate taking the time today. This has been so fun. To our audience, we're going to be doing 7 more of these live sessions over the next couple months. Every Monday at noon. We have one Saturday morning planned as well. So make sure you tune in and subscribe to the Calmversation Learning Foundation's Facebook page, as well as YouTube channel. Please like, share, and subscribe, and be sure to tune in next week on Monday.
Oh, Marlon, you did a great job. Thank you so much for submitting those questions, viewers. We loved receiving those questions. Keep sending your questions, and we're here with you. There's nothing else you take away from today's session, is that we are figuring things out as we go, and we're all kind of in this situation, and just give yourself permission to feel however you're feeling.
Yes. And thank you for joining us and taking the time today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.